lucky enough to get with Ed, owner of this beautiful L-39 in Race 3. So Ed, I wanted to ask you, is this a stock L-39?
Yes, it is, except for the weight that we threw out of it.
Have you done anything to make it go faster? Any performance tuning or something to the engine or the airframe?
The fuel controller is at peak. It's a good, strong engine, and we have a tail mod at the back. You'd have to come see it. That's we took a lot of weight out of it.
We'll look at that tail mod in a second, but it sounded like you were going to let us know and maybe some top secret stuff about a fuel control unit. Do you care to elaborate on that?
Well, it's within parameters, and it's not quite as peaked as my race plane. This is a pace plane. It is capable of racing. If it does race, it's either at top of the silver or in the gold. But my race plane, Race 5, is the aircraft that has many other modifications. This aircraft doesn't have any. You would normally have drop tanks, and the piping for that is all gone. Any weight that isn't starting the engine, flying the airplane, air conditioning pressurization system is out of the airplane. So we have any weights, instead of weights in the front, we carry the battery at the very front of the airplane, so you're CG. But this aircraft is CG'd for much more normal flying, everyday flying, as opposed to racing. So if you were to race, or you would have to shift the CG a little bit, and you might want to go ahead and get rid of the tip tanks and put on some other just tips.
So you mentioned Race 5. Is that Rick Vandam in that one?
It's Rick Vandam raced it for several years, and Mike Steiger won in it 2 years ago. Well, actually 3 years now. 3 years ago. Pete won 2 years ago. And don't forget COVID.
Right, that's really sad about that whole thing. But I want to ask you a little more about the fuel control unit. So if you do some tuning on it, what would a typical reading be on the gauge in the cockpit? If 65 ATM is redline, what might it be set, or what might a pilot see in the cockpit?
Well, you're going to see definitely at mil takeoff 106. 106%, and you're going to see the EGT probably on this aircraft. You're not going to see it anywhere above about maybe 620. On the race plane, you're probably going to see it up around 680, 690.
I believe you're talking about the fuel throttle percent. I was more interested in the fuel pressure ATM reading on the FCU gauge itself, if you care to elaborate on that.
Sure. The fuel pressure will be at the top of the arc. It'll be right at the needle.
At 65. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
You bet.